Hi, my name is Charles. Now I'm here to talk about the issue of immigration. This issue is controversial. It's controversial. It has been in the news a lot recent months and years. This is an issue that our people split. Some calling for walls on our borders and our tougher immigration laws, and others that argue that this nation was created by immigrants make this country better. In this video, we will identify some of the stereotypes about immigrants and that are used to justify their exclusion and them to evaluate whether or not these claims are valid. The common stereotype we hear about immigrants is the immigrants who come into this country, both legal and illegal, are criminals. In this clip, Laura Ingraham makes the argument that illegal immigrants that come here are violent criminals that target Americans.
While many, some at least, quibbled with the formulation the president made there, they knew what he basically meant. Maybe he shouldn't have singled out Mexico. People are coming from a lot of places doing us harm. And I'll tell you tonight, there is continuous and sad evidence to substantiate his claims of the underlying crimes. Every day in this country, there are fresh American tragedies to report on. American citizens brutalized, abused, murdered by illegal aliens. Yet most of these stories are buried at the back of the local metro sections in your local papers. And most of them are never heard on national news broadcasts. Well, the media, they're too busy doing what? They're capturing every utterance of a few specific porn stars. So tonight, we're going to report on a
So is there any truth to this belief that must mean all illegals are criminals and hurt America?
Tomorrow, Customs and Border Patrol agents will give reporters access to buildings where they're holding foreign children crossing into this country without parents. Tens of thousands have entered illegally this year, and more are coming every day. Here's Vicente Arenas.
We spoke to these boys in their family's apartment near Washington, D.C.
How old are you?
17.
17. How old are you?
15.
15. And how old are you?
12.
They asked us not to use their names. Their family paid smugglers $9,000 to bring them from Honduras to the Texas border. They crossed the Rio Grande River alone in January.
What was the worst part about the journey here for you?
Cruzar aquí.
To crossing the river.
The boys are from San Pedro Sula, the city with the highest murder rate in the world. They say they had to escape gangs that shot their older brother.
You were afraid you were going to get killed.
Sí.
Yes, he told us.
According to CBS,
She gonna be mad.
who was talking to illegal children
I'm not gonna be able to kiss her. You got something to drink?
coming into America, escaping gang violence.
Oh, I was gonna say, honey, buy some.
For example, they came to escape
It's
gang
ready.
violence in their
Can you tell
own
me when they're
Mexican
done?
city.
Yes, I'll buy it. Can you tell me when the line's short?
These immigrants
Bro, I can't eat
are not
them,
violent.
bro.
They're currently running from violence back home. So it shows how not all immigrants illegally are violent criminals. Another common stereotype we hear about immigrants is immigrants hurt our economy and take the jobs and make lower wages. In this clip, Laura Ingraham makes an argument that Americans will do the jobs immigrants do to support their families, and how in her personal life she and her family did these jobs.
A big immigration debate is underway on Capitol Hill. Mitch McConnell is saying that you only have 1 week to do the whole thing for the Dreamers. And I'm telling you, watching this thing, the same old open border suspects are at it again. Front and center is Senator Dick Durbin. He took to the Senate floor yesterday to repeat that tedious trope that you Americans are just too lazy or unwilling to do the jobs that only illegal immigrants will do.
Go to the local meat processing plant or the chicken processing plant and watch who comes out of that plant at quitting time. Hispanics and Africans taking what are pretty tough, dirty, rough jobs because others don't want them. Not many of us say to our sons and daughters, I'm hoping the day will come when you decide to go and pick fruit for a living. Hardly ever hear that, because we know it's hard, backbreaking work, and immigrants do the work.
Now, that is so offensive on so many levels. We could spend an hour debunking it and analyzing it. Just from my own personal experience, my brothers, my mother, and I did all of these jobs. We did manual labor, fruit picking, paper routes, lawn work, cutting lawns, raking lawns, restaurant work. My mother waited tables into her early 70s. And if she were alive, I think about her a lot. I think she'd probably show up at Durbin's office to throw one of her old polyester uniforms at him. She'd be so mad. I'll tell you what's really going on in this whole.
For example, dairy farm owner from Vice News says that immigrants are like family and help him bring business and cheap labor that helps him grow.
When we think about immigration being a controversial issue, we usually think of places like Arizona and Texas, but actually New York State has become such a hotbed for immigration enforcement. And the main reason is that agriculture and dairy farms rely on immigrant labor so much.
Immigrants play a critical role in the American food production system. Chances are the food you ate today was planted, harvested, and packed by workers who were born in Mexico and Central America. Dairy is no exception. Milking cows is a dirty, monotonous job that not a lot of Americans want to do. So most U.S. dairy farms rely on foreigners to fill entry-level positions in overnight shifts. The problem is dairy farms don't have a way to recruit immigrant workers legally because the government doesn't allow them to participate in the H-2A Agricultural Guest Worker Program. That program is for seasonal farm work only, not year-round work like milking. So since they can't get workers legally, most dairy farms hire immigrants illegally. Congress's refusal to create a guest worker program for dairy has New York farmers on edge. New York State is the country's top producer of Greek yogurt and third biggest producer of milk. But right in the middle of the state's most important dairy producing region is one of the largest immigrant detention facilities outside of Arizona. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE as the agency is known, and the Border Patrol agents who work along the sleepy US-Canadian border have made it their mission to make sure that facility's beds stay full, and all the undocumented farm workers in the area make for an easy way to fill their quotas. Dairy farmers near the immigrant detention facility are irate. With prospects for immigration reform dead for the foreseeable future, they constantly worry that their workers will be deported and that they won't have enough people to keep their cows milked, adding another layer of uncertainty to an already uncertain business. We went to upstate New York to try to understand the cat and mouse game that's going on between dairy farms and immigration authorities, a game that we as taxpayers fund. The first thing I wanted to know was whether there's actually any truth to farmers' claim that they can't find enough Americans to do entry-level milking work. So I decided to conduct a little experiment outside an unemployment office just a few minutes' drive from the Immigrant Detention Center and a handful of dairy farms.
Excuse me. Y'all looking for work? Kind of doing a little poll. Are you looking for work right now?
Yeah.
Would you be interested in working on a dairy farm by chance?
For milking or something?
Yeah, milking parlor.
From what time to what time?
2 a.m. to noon.
Oh, it's a long shift in the middle of the night.
2 a.m. I don't know if I can do it.
No? Okay. All right. Would you be interested in work on a dairy farm by chance?
No, thank you.
No.
Not right now.
It's not my kind of job.
Yeah, I don't know about the farm, man.
Okay.
I did that when I was younger, and I don't want to do that again.
I'm a little skeptical about them kicking and stuff. So.
Just messy, and I'm at an age where I don't want to do that anymore.
I'm surprised they don't got like a shitload of Mexicans willing to do that, huh? And they ship them all back to Mexico.
Hey guys, can I ask you a quick question?
I don't speak a lot, but...
¿Hablas español?
Sí.
Sí? It pays about $9 plus housing.
Cool.
Quiero preguntarle si querían trabajar en una lechería.
Sí, hay trabajo mañana mismo. ¿Seguro que
¿Sí?
Sí.
¿De dónde vienen?
Yo de Puerto Rico.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.
These unemployed Americans' largely negative reactions to the idea of milking had me curious.
This demonstrates the immigrants doesn't hurt our economy and take our jobs and lower wages. It refutes the stereotype that immigrants hurt our economy and take jobs and lower wages, because it shows how Americans are willing to work those jobs for low wages and immigrants are desperate enough to do so.
That's a notebook.
Just coming in the
What's up, man?
The resentment of immigrants isn't a now thing. It's been going on as long as immigrants have been coming into our country. For example, the Chinese were excluded because Americans thought they were taking their jobs in companies as well. They think as eliminate illegal immigrants. Similar to today, this stereotype was unfair because it made every immigrant is violent and criminals, but most of them are not, only just a small portion. However, untrue this widespread belief was, it compelled people to resent and exclude people from the group. Everyone's opinions on illegal immigrants is that they are criminals and they're violent and they come to the U.S. to spread attacks on U.S. citizens. What we should have learned from this is not all legal immigrants are criminals and are taking jobs and lowering wages. If we would have learned this lesson before, we would not stereotype illegal immigrants to put them down and all immigrants today.